Most traders don't lose because they're stupid or unlucky, or because the market is rigged against them. They lose because they're treating trading like a game they can beat through effort alone, without ever addressing the part of them that keeps making the same decisions over and over again. Let me say that differently. You can have the best strategy in the world, you can backtest it, you can see it work for other people, you can know exactly what you're supposed to do, and you'll still lose money if you don't understand what's happening in your head when you're sitting in front of those charts. This isn't a video about setups or risk management formulas. This is about the part no one wants to talk about. The part where you know what to do, but you don't do it. The part where you tell yourself, this time will be different, and it never is. The part where you sit there after another losing week and wonder if you're just not cut out for this. I want to walk you through what's actually happening when traders lose. Not the surface level stuff. The real reasons. Because once you see it, you can't unsee it. And that's when change becomes possible. Let's start with something simple. Most traders enter this game thinking success is about finding the right method. They think if they just learn enough, study enough, watch enough videos, they'll eventually crack the code. And that makes sense, right? That's how most things in life work. You study for a test, you pass. You practice a skill, you improve. You work harder, you get better results. But trading doesn't work that way. Trading is one of the only pursuits where you can do everything right and still lose, where you can make the perfect decision and the market moves against you anyway, where discipline and patience sometimes feel like they're punishing you instead of rewarding you. And this creates a problem, because your brain is wired to find patterns and solutions. It wants to believe that if you just tweak something, adjust something, learn one more thing, you'll finally start winning consistently. So you keep searching, you keep switching, you keep thinking the answer is out there somewhere. But here's what's really happening. You're avoiding the only question that matters. Why do you keep doing things you know you shouldn't do? Think about the last time you overtrade. You didn't do it because you forgot your plan. You did it because something inside you needed to act. Maybe you were bored. Maybe you were trying to recover from a loss. Maybe you felt like you were missing out. But you knew, even as you were clicking that button, that you were breaking your own rules. Or think about the last time you hesitated on a trade that met all your criteria. You saw the setup. You knew it was valid. But you didn't take it. And then it worked. And you felt that sick feeling in your stomach. Not because you lost money, but because you didn't trust yourself when it mattered. These aren't strategy problems. These are psychological patterns. And until you address them, nothing else changes. Here's the thing most people don't realize about losing in trading. It's not random, it's not bad luck, it's actually very predictable once you understand the cycle. It starts with hope. You come into trading because you've seen what's possible. You've heard the stories. You've seen the screenshots. You believe that if you just put in the work, you can make this happen. And that hope feels good. It feels motivating. It makes you excited to learn. But then you start trading real money and reality hits. You lose again. You have a winning day and then give it all back the next morning. You start questioning everything. Your strategy, your broker, your discipline, your intelligence. And this is where most traders make their first major mistake. They think the problem is external. They think they need a better strategy or more capital or different market conditions. So they change something. They switch time frames. They add indicators. They join a new Discord group. They buy a course. And for a little while, this feels like progress. It feels like you're doing something, but you're not addressing the real issue. You're not looking at why you took that revenge trade after 3 losses in a row. You're not examining why you moved your stop loss when the trade went against you. You're not asking yourself why you risked twice your normal amount because you felt confident about a setup. And because you're not addressing these patterns, they keep repeating. Different setups, same results. Different account size, same mistakes. Different market, same emotional reactions. This is why traders can spend years in this game and still feel like they're starting over every few months. Because they are. They're rebuilding strategies and rules without ever fixing the foundation. Let me tell you what losing actually looks like on a psychological level. It's not just about the money leaving your account, it's about what happens to your identity. When you first start trading, you're optimistic, but humble. You know you're learning. You expect to make mistakes. You give yourself permission to be a beginner. But after a while, something shifts. You've put in time, you've studied, you've had some winning trades. You start to think of yourself as a trader. not just someone trying to learn trading. And that's when losses start to hurt differently. Because now they're not just setbacks, they feel like evidence that you're not who you thought you were. Every losing trade becomes a referendum on your competence. Every bad day becomes proof that maybe you don't have what it takes. This is when traders start lying to themselves, not consciously, but in small ways. They start justifying trades that don't meet their criteria. They start blaming external factors. They start telling themselves stories about why this loss doesn't count, or why this win proves they're on the right track. And the more you do this, the more disconnected you become from reality. You stop seeing your trading clearly. You stop seeing your patterns. You stop seeing yourself. I've talked to traders who've blown multiple accounts, and they'll tell me, with complete sincerity, that they just need to be more disciplined. As if discipline is something you can just decide to have more of. As if they haven't been telling themselves the same thing for months or years. But discipline isn't the problem. The problem is that they don't understand why they're undisciplined. They don't see the emotional drivers behind their decisions. They don't recognize that when they overtrade, it's not because they forgot their plan. It's because they're trying to feel a certain way. They're trying to prove something. They're trying to fix something that has nothing to do with the charts in front of them. This is where most traders get stuck. They're stuck in a loop where they know what to do, but they can't consistently do it, and they can't figure out why. Let me explain what's happening. Your brain has two modes when you're trading. There's the logical mode, the one that makes plans and sets rules and understands probability. This is the part of you that writes your trading plan on Sunday night and feels confident about the week ahead. But then there's the emotional mode, the one that reacts to pain and pleasure, the one that wants to avoid discomfort and seek reward right now. This is the part of you that clicks the buy button when you said you'd wait, or closes a winning trade early because you're afraid of giving back profit, or holds a losing trade because you don't want to admit you were wrong. And here's the key. The emotional mode is faster and stronger than the logical mode. When you're in a trade and it's going against you and you're feeling that tightness in your chest, your logical brain is not in control. Your emotional brain is. And it's making decisions based on how you feel, not on what you know. This is why you can understand risk management perfectly and still risk too much on a single trade. This is why you can have a rule about maximum daily loss and still keep trading after you hit it. This is why you can know that revenge trading doesn't work and still do it anyway. You're not weak. You're not stupid. You're human. And human brains are designed to prioritize immediate emotional relief over long-term strategic benefit. That's not a flaw, it's biology. But in trading, it's lethal. So what do losing traders do when they start to realize this? Usually one of two things. The first group tries to fix it with more rules. They create more detailed trading plans. They add more conditions to their entries. They set more alarms and reminders. They think that if they just make the system tight enough, they won't be able to make mistakes. But this doesn't work, because you can't rule your way out of an emotional problem. You'll just find new ways to break the rules, or you'll follow them mechanically without understanding why they exist, and eventually you'll abandon them when they feel inconvenient. The second group gives up on discipline entirely. They decide that strict rules don't work for them. They tell themselves they're intuitive traders, or that they trade by feel. They convince themselves that their emotional rides on the market are actually valuable information. And sometimes, very rarely, this works. But for most people, it's just a rationalization. It's a way to avoid the discomfort of admitting that they don't have control over their impulses. It's easier to call it intuition than to acknowledge that you're reactive. Both of these approaches miss the point. The point isn't to eliminate emotion from trading. That's impossible. The point is to understand your emotions well enough that they inform your decisions instead of dictating them. This means you need to get honest with yourself, not in a motivational poster way, in a real, uncomfortable way. You need to start asking yourself questions that you've been avoiding. Why do you feel like you need to be in a trade right now? Why does sitting on your hands feel like you're wasting time? Why does closing a trade at a small loss feel like failure even when it's the right decision? Why does a winning trade make you feel like you've finally figured it out, and a losing trade make you feel like you're back to square one? These questions don't have simple answers, but they have true answers. And the truth is usually that you're using trading to meet emotional needs that trading can't fulfill. Let me be specific. A lot of traders are using this game to prove something. Maybe they want to prove they're smart. Maybe they want to prove they're disciplined. Maybe they want to prove they can succeed at something difficult. Maybe they want to prove they're not like other people who fail. And on the surface, that sounds fine. Ambition is good, right? Wanting to succeed is normal. But here's the problem. When your self-worth is tied to your trading results, you can't trade objectively. Every trade becomes personal. Every loss feels like a judgment on your value as a person. Every win feels like validation that you're on the right path. And this creates a desperate energy. You start needing trades to work. You start forcing setups that aren't there. You start holding winners too long because you don't want the feeling to end. You start cutting losers too early because you can't stand the discomfort. This is why so many traders have such a volatile emotional relationship with their screens. It's not really about the money. It's about what the money represents. It's about what winning or losing means about who they are. And until you separate your identity from your results, you'll always trade emotionally. You'll always be reactive. You'll always find a way to sabotage yourself when things start going well because deep down you don't really believe you deserve it. I know that sounds heavy, but it's the truth for a lot of people. And the traders who figure this out, who do the internal work, who stop trying to prove something and start focusing on process, those are the ones who eventually make it. Now I want to talk about something that doesn't get discussed enough. Boredom. Most traders think their enemy is fear or greed. And those are real. But boredom might be worse, because boredom is what kills you slowly, over time, without you even noticing. Here's what happens. You develop a strategy that works. You backtest it. You see it has an edge. You start trading it live and it works. You have a few good weeks, you're following your plan, you're being patient, you're doing everything right, and then nothing happens. The market doesn't set up for days. Your criteria aren't met. You sit there watching, waiting, and nothing triggers. And this is when the doubt creeps in. You start thinking, maybe I'm missing something. Maybe my criteria are too strict. Maybe I should be more flexible. You see other traders posting wins and you wonder if your approach is too conservative. You feel like you're on the sidelines while everyone else is making money. So you take a trade that's close to your criteria but not quite there. And maybe it works, and now you've taught yourself that you don't actually need to wait for your exact setup. You've taught yourself that your rules were arbitrary, and next time you push a little further. And further. And before you know it, you're not following any plan at all. You're just reacting. You're just trying to stay busy. You're trading to trade, not because there's an actual opportunity. This is how consistent traders become inconsistent. Not through dramatic blow-ups, but through slow drift. Through little compromises. Through letting boredom convince them that action is better than patience. And the cruel part is that the market will occasionally reward this behavior. You'll take a bad trade and it'll work, and that reinforces the idea that you don't need to be strict. But over time, over hundreds of trades, the math catches up. The edge disappears. The losses accumulate. Most traders don't blow up. They bleed out. If you're still watching this, if you're nodding along because this sounds familiar, I want you to do something. Subscribe to this channel. Not because I need your subscription, but because you need this kind of content. You need reminders that trading is hard for everyone. You need perspective when you're spiraling. You need someone telling you the truth instead of selling you a fantasy. This channel exists for traders who are serious about getting better, not traders looking for shortcuts or secret strategies. Traders who understand that the real work happens between your ears. So if that's you, subscribe, because we're just getting started. Now let's talk about responsibility. This is where a lot of traders get defensive, so I'm going to say it as clearly as I can. You are responsible for your results, not your broker, not the market makers, not the algorithm, not the other traders who supposedly have better information than you. You. I know that's not fun to hear. I know it's easier to believe that external forces are working against you. But that belief is a trap. Because if you think the problem is outside of you, you'll never fix it. You'll just keep looking for the right circumstances, the right market, the right moment when everything aligns and trading becomes easy. It never becomes easy. It becomes manageable. It becomes sustainable, but only if you take ownership of your decisions. This doesn't mean you should beat yourself up. It doesn't mean every loss is your fault in a moral sense. Markets move, losses happen. Even the best traders have losing days, losing weeks, losing months, but you chose to enter that trade. You chose your position size. You chose when to exit. You made those decisions based on your analysis, your emotions, your beliefs about yourself and the market, and you need to own that. Because ownership is power. If the market is random and you're a victim, there's nothing you can do. But if your results are a product of your decisions, you can change your decisions. You can examine them. You can improve them. This is the shift that separates traders who eventually make it from traders who quit. The ones who make it stop blaming, they stop complaining, they stop looking for excuses, they start looking at their trades like data. What did I do? Why did I do it? What was I feeling? What pattern am I repeating? And they do this without judgment. Not because they're soft on themselves, but because judgment doesn't help. Judgment makes you defensive. It makes you want to prove you're not the problem, and that keeps you stuck. You need brutal honesty without self-hatred. You need to be able to say, I broke my rule because I was impatient, without spiraling into, I'm a failure who will never succeed. The first statement is useful, the second is destructive. Let me tell you what happens when traders finally get this. When they finally stop fighting themselves and start working with themselves, they stop expecting perfection. They stop thinking that one bad trade means they're broken. They start seeing trading as a long-term process, not a series of individual battles to win or lose. And this changes everything. Because now they can take a loss without it ruining their day. They can miss a trade without feeling like they failed. They can have a mediocre week without questioning their entire approach. This is what consistency actually looks like. It's not about winning all the time, it's about being stable, about having the same process on good days and bad days, about making decisions based on your plan, not your feelings. But here's what no one tells you. Getting to. This point is uncomfortable. It requires you to sit with feelings you've been avoiding. It requires you to stop using trading as a distraction from whatever else is going on in your life. It requires you to face the parts of yourself that are scared, or arrogant, or desperate, or bored. Most traders aren't willing to do this. They'd rather keep searching for a better strategy. They'd rather keep believing that the solution is external, because internal work is hard. It's slow. It doesn't feel like progress in the way that learning a new indicator feels like progress, but it's the only thing that actually works. You can have the best strategy in the world, and you'll still lose if you can't execute it. You can have unlimited capital, and you'll still blow accounts if you don't understand your patterns. You can have years of experience, and you'll still make beginner mistakes if you haven't done the psychological work. So what does that work actually look like? Let me give you some concrete things. First, you need to start tracking your emotional state along with your trades. Not just what you did, but how you felt when you did it. Were you anxious, confident, bored, angry, excited, and was that feeling justified by the setup, or was it coming from something else? Over time, you'll start to see patterns. You'll notice that you take your worst trades when you're feeling a certain way. You'll notice that you break your rules under specific emotional conditions. And once you see the pattern, you can start to interrupt it. Second, you need to slow down. Most traders are moving too fast. They're jumping from trade to trade, decision to decision, without any space to think. They're reactive instead of responsive. Start creating gaps. Before you enter a trade, pause. Take a breath. Ask yourself if this meets your criteria. Ask yourself if you're acting from your plan or your emotions. It sounds simple, but it's incredibly difficult when you're in the moment and you feel like you need to act now. Third, you need to separate your trading from your identity. Your results do not define your worth. A good trader can have a bad day. A profitable system can have a losing streak. You are not your P&L. This is easier said than done, but start practicing it. When you have a losing trade, notice if you immediately start questioning everything. Notice if you feel shame or anger. And remind yourself that one trade is just one trade. It's data. It doesn't mean anything about who you are. Fourth, you need to build a life outside of trading. I know that sounds off topic, but it's not. If trading is your only source of meaning, you'll put too much pressure on it. You'll need it to work. And that need will destroy your objectivity. Have other things that matter to you, other goals, other relationships, other interests. This isn't about balance in some shallow way. It's about having a stable foundation, so that trading doesn't have to carry all your emotional weight. Let's talk about time, because this is another area where traders sabotage themselves without realizing it. Most people come into trading thinking they'll be profitable in 6 months, maybe a year if they're being realistic. They look at how long it took them to learn other skills and they assume trading will be similar. But trading is not like other skills. In most pursuits, your effort correlates with your results. You practice the guitar for 6 months, you can play songs. You study a language for a year, you can have conversations. You go to the gym consistently, you get stronger. Trading doesn't work that way. You can do everything right for 6 months and still be unprofitable. You can be profitable for 3 months and then lose it all in a week. You can feel like you've figured it out and then realize you haven't. This is brutal, because your brain is wired to expect that hard work leads to results. And when it doesn't, you start doubting yourself. You start wondering if you're doing something wrong, or if you're just not talented enough, or if this whole thing is a waste of time. But here's the truth. Trading takes longer than you think. For most people, it takes years to become consistently profitable. Not because they're slow learners, but because the game is just that difficult. Because there are so many layers to master. Technical analysis, risk management, psychology, discipline, patience, emotional regulation, pattern recognition, self-awareness. And you can't rush this process. You can't skip steps. You have to go through the phases. You have to make the mistakes. You have to lose the money. You have to feel the doubt. Because that's how you learn. The traders who make it are not smarter or more talented. They're just more patient. They're willing to stay in the game long enough to figure it out. They're willing to keep showing up even when it's frustrating. They're willing to trust that if they keep doing the right things, eventually the results will come. But most traders aren't willing to wait that long. They want it now. They need it now. And that impatience is what kills them. They blow accounts trying to speed up the process. They take excessive risk because they're trying to make back time. They give up right before they would have turned the corner. If you're serious about this, you need to accept that it's going to take longer than you want. You need to stop putting deadlines on your progress. You need to stop comparing yourself to other traders who seem to have figured it out faster. You need to focus on doing the work, day after day, without obsessing over when it's going to pay off. I want to talk about what happens when traders do start to figure it out. Because this is where a different kind of trap emerges. You have a good month, maybe your best month ever, you followed your plan, you were disciplined, you felt calm, you started to believe that you've finally cracked it. And then, something interesting happens. You start to feel pressure, because now you've set a new standard. Now you have something to protect. Now you're afraid of losing what you've built. And this fear makes you tentative. You start second-guessing your setups. You start taking profits too early because you don't want to give back your gains. You start avoiding trades because you're afraid of breaking your streak. Or you go the other direction. You get overconfident. You think you're on a hot streak, so you increase your risk. You take trades that are marginal because you feel like everything is working. You stop being as careful with your process because you think you've moved past needing that level of discipline. Both of these reactions destroy your edge. The first one makes you too conservative. The second makes you too aggressive. And both of them come from the same source. You're attached to your results. This is one of the hardest lessons in trading. You need to care enough to do the work, but not care so much that you can't think clearly. You need to want success without needing it. You need to be proud of your progress without becoming attached to it. How do you do this? By focusing on process over outcome. By measuring yourself on whether you followed your plan, not on whether you made money. By understanding that good months and bad months are both part of trading, and neither one defines who you are as a trader. When you can take a great month in stride without celebration or fear, you're starting to get it. When you can take a rough week without spiraling, you're building real stability. This doesn't mean you become emotionless. It means your emotions are appropriate to what's actually happening. You're pleased when you trade well. You're disappointed when you don't. But you're not swinging between euphoria and despair based on short-term results. Let me tell you what most traders never realize. The game isn't about finding the perfect strategy. It's not about predicting the market. It's not about being right. It's about managing yourself. It's about showing up day after day with the same clarity and discipline. It's about making good decisions regardless of the outcome. It's about being the kind of person who can handle winning and losing without falling apart. And this is hard. This is harder than learning any setup or indicator because it requires you to change, not your strategy. Most people don't want to hear this. They want to believe that success is about finding the right information. They want to think that somewhere out there someone has the answer, and if they just find that person or that method, everything will click. But the answer isn't out there, it's in you. It's in your willingness to look at yourself honestly. It's in your ability to sit with discomfort instead of reacting to it. It's in your commitment to the process even when it's not exciting. This is why trading is so difficult, not because the technical aspects are impossible to learn, but because it forces you to confront every weakness, every fear, every impulsive tendency you have. It puts you in situations where your emotions are screaming at you to do one thing, and your rational mind is telling you to do another. And you have to choose. Every single trade is a choice, to follow your plan or break it. to trust your process or doubt it, to act from clarity or react from emotion, and over time these choices accumulate. They form patterns, they create your results, and they reveal who you actually are, not who you think you are or who you want to be. So here's what I want you to understand. If you're losing money in trading right now, it's not because you're incapable. It's not because the market is against you. It's not because you haven't found the right strategy yet. It's because you're running patterns that don't work. Patterns of thinking, patterns of reacting, patterns of relating to uncertainty and risk, and yourself. And the good news is that patterns can change, but they only change when you see them clearly, when you stop defending them, when you stop pretending they're not there. You have to be willing to look at the truth of how you're actually trading, not how you wish you were trading. You have to be willing to admit that you're the common denominator in all your results. You have to be willing to do the uncomfortable work of examining why you do what you do. This isn't about beating yourself up, it's about waking up. It's about moving from unconscious reactions to conscious choices. It's about becoming the kind of trader who can handle this game long term. And I'll be honest with you, most people won't do this. They'll keep looking for the easy answer. They'll keep switching strategies and blaming circumstances. They'll keep losing money and wondering why nothing changes. But you don't have to be most people. You can be the one who looks at the hard truths. You can be the one who does the work. You can be the one who figures this out. Not because you're special, but because you're willing to be honest with yourself. Because you're willing to be patient. Because you're willing to let this process take as long as it takes. Trading will show you everything you don't want to see about yourself. Your impatience, your ego, your need for control, your fear of being wrong, your inability to sit still, your tendency to make things harder than they need to be. But if you're willing to see those things, if you're willing to work with them instead of against them, trading can also teach you things that nothing else can. It can teach you discipline, patience, emotional regulation, self-awareness, resilience. It can teach you how to make decisions under pressure, how to trust yourself, how to separate what you can control from what you can't, how to stay committed to something difficult without knowing when it will pay off. These skills don't just make you a better trader, they make you better at everything. They change how you move through the world. But you only get those lessons if you stay in the game long enough. If you don't quit when it gets hard, if you don't blow yourself up trying to force results, if you're willing to treat this as a long-term journey instead of a short-term transaction. Most traders lose money. That's just the statistical reality. But it's not because trading is impossible. It's because most traders are fighting themselves instead of the market. They're trying to win without understanding what winning actually requires. They're focused on outcomes instead of process. They're reactive instead of intentional. You can be different. But it starts with accepting that the work is internal. It starts with recognizing your patterns. It starts with taking responsibility for your decisions without judgment. It starts with being patient with yourself while still holding yourself accountable. This is the path. It's not glamorous, it's not fast, it's not easy, but it's real. And it works for the people who commit to it. So stop looking for the next strategy. Stop thinking someone else has the answer you need. Stop waiting for the market to cooperate with your timeline. Start looking at yourself. Start paying attention to your patterns. Start doing the hard work of becoming someone who can handle this game. Because that's what trading is really about. It's not about the market. It's about you. And until you understand that, you'll keep losing money for reasons you can't quite explain. But once you get it, once you really see it, everything changes. Not overnight, but gradually, trade by trade, day by day, until one day you realize you're not fighting yourself anymore. You're just trading, calmly, clearly, consistently. That's what's possible, not perfection, not endless winning, but stability, clarity, the ability to show up and do the work regardless of what the market gives you. And that's what this channel is here to help you build, not through hype or secrets or shortcuts, but through truth. Through perspective, through the kind of content that reminds you what actually matters in this game. This is Trader's Mental Edge, where trading starts in the mind.